Hello ladies and welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark Roden, and in today's video we are going to be going over the 17 best first cars for high schoolers. If they're car guys though. Now we've done that video in the past in the terms of like best first cars for high schoolers, but we've never done it in like a sense of for the car guys, you know what I mean? Usually I give a bunch of examples of like reliable first cars that have a little bit of coolness points to them, but these are for specifically the car guys, you know what I mean? So most of you guys aren't going to care too much about reliability. You care more about the cool parts. And so these are cars that are good for you if you're a high schooler, that are cool. And what I mean by like good for you is obviously they do have to have a little bit of reliability, but they also have to have like practicality. They have to have, you know, a decent amount of power because you're a high schooler, and I'm not your parent, so I'm not going to be the one that's going to be like, don't buy a high horsepower car. So they're going to have a decent amount of power. They're going to look cool. Things that a high schooler wants, but it's still a good financial decision for them. Without further ado, let's go right into the list with number 17. I keep forgetting to do Song of the Day. So Song of the Day today is Love Sosa by Chief Keef. Fuckers in the barbershop always telling me Chief Keef ain't about this, Chief Keef ain't about that. Like, my boy is a BD on Lamron and them. What's wrong with you? 17th. Also, I forgot to mention in the beginning, yes, the video is just going to be titled Dirt Cheap First Cars because I really don't have a certain like price point. Now, I will say all these cars can be found for under 10 grand, but most of these can be found under 5, some can be found under 3. Like, it really just kind of depends. I didn't really want to give myself a budget, so the budget is kind of 10 grand. But the first one is the Scion TC first gen, which comes with a 2.4 liter inline 4, making 160 horsepower in its front wheel drive. Obviously, these Scion TCs look good, they're reliable, but that's about where it stops. Unfortunately, they just don't really have much else going for them, which makes me sad to say, because I do like the Scion TC, I really do, but they really aren't like a tuner or anything like that. But they are a perfect car for something like a high school car guy. 16th place, however, is kind of a car just like it. I gotta bend over. Oh gosh. The Nissan Maxima, sixth, I hate that word, generation. The 6th gen Maxima is definitely a very weird looking one, to say the least. It doesn't look the sportiest of all the Maximas, but in my opinion, it's one of my favorites. It comes with a 3.5 liter V6, making 255 horsepower in its front wheel drive. That motor is a VQ35. I think it's the DE. It's got to be a DE if it's only making 255, which is the same motor they put in 350Zs or G35 Coupes. So obviously, if you're a high schooler, you probably know what those are. This bad boy had it, but it's a front wheel drive, reliable, 4-door version of it that's more practical. 15th place is going to the wonderful Subaru Forester SF or SG. That's the first or second generation of the Forester. They're pretty much the same car. I say this every time I talk about these cars, but it's the truth. They are pretty much the same car. Honestly, the SF should have just been, or the SG should have just been a facelifted version of the SF, and nobody would have batted an eye. Either way, this car comes with a 2.5 liter flat 4, making 165 horsepower in its all-wheel drive. These puppies are just the like high school icon. Like, there's if you go to a high school and it's public, even if you go to a private high school, maybe not a private high school, they're probably driving like BMW M3s over there, but if you go to a public high school, dude, you're gonna find at least one person at that school with a Forester SF or a Forester SG, and for good reason. They're all-wheel drive, they're good for any sort of conditions, but they can also be a very fun car if you want to turn it that route. Now let's go into the more fun side of things, one that doesn't really scratch the itch in terms of reliability or practicality, but does scratch the itch in the sense of fun being cool. Number 14 is the Hyundai Genesis Coupe. It is just a sports car. It's not the best for performance in terms of aftermarket support, but up front it's actually not that bad because it comes with a 3.8 liter V6, making 348 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. 350 horsepower in a rear wheel drive car for a high schooler is obviously scary. I'm not going to be the one to sit here and be like, no, you can do it. No, it's definitely something you're going to want to take into consideration before buying it. Be honest with yourself. Do you think you can handle that much horsepower in a rear wheel drive car? If you can, and if you honestly believe you can, then yeah, man, go for it. It's not as scary as people make it out to be, okay? 13th is going to the wonderful Ford Crown Victoria. Is your name Victoria? Do you wear a crown? Well, then this car's for you, partner. Are you an ex-police officer in high school? Probably. That makes sense. This car's for you. It's literally just an ex-police officer's police car, and they really are as good as people make them out to be. They come with a 4.6 liter V8 making 235 horsepower, and it is rear-wheel drive. Literally the only downside to these cars is the fact that it is a V8, and it is rear-wheel drive. There's two downsides. The V8 is not necessarily immediately a bad thing. As a matter of fact, the V8 in the Crown Vic is very reliable, so that's actually a good thing, but it is bad in terms of the gas mileage. Yes, it's good for a V8 in its gas mileage, but it's still not ever going to be something as good as like an inline 4 will be, obviously. But that doesn't matter because you have so much more fun at your fingertips now with the Crown Vic. You have tons of space. It's just gonna it pays it off, you know. 12th place is just going to a banger, boy. A banger for under 10 grand right now. It's the BMW 328i F30. People are buying E90s as their first high school cars, and that's totally a good idea. But the F30 is the next generation in that. It's just like the next step up from the E90, and you can find them under 10K. Comes with a 2-liter turbo inline 4 making 230 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It's a perfect mixture too, because 230 horsepower is plenty of horsepower in a car like this, and it still looks really cool, obviously, because it's a BMW, and BMWs usually do look pretty cool. It's luxurious for its price, at least. It's decently reliable despite what people are going to tell you online, and on top of all that, you can modify it, but it's not to the point where it's like you're gonna freaking get 500 horsepower out of it and then crash it into a ditch and die. No, you can just get a nice little modification train going. 11th place though is admittedly just one of the best. This is genuinely just one of the best first vehicle options in the world. It's the Ford Ranger, specifically obviously the first gen. I know they have a second gen now, and people in Australia drive those. You know what I'm talking about. The Ford Ranger, the original Ford Ranger. It is just that good. It comes with a 4-liter V6 making 207 horsepower, and it's 4x4. Horsepower numbers change depending on the year that you get for a Ford Ranger, but it shouldn't matter to you anyway because it's a Ford Ranger. You're not buying a Ford Ranger to go fast. You're buying it to just save gas, to get to places on time, to go wherever you need to go without having to worry, to be able to beat up a car like this and not have to worry about it breaking, or if it does break, to be able to just find another part, because they made like 50 million Ford Rangers, so you could just find another part anywhere. You could go to a freaking daycare, and one of the kids there are going to be bringing a Ford Ranger power steering pump to show and tell. It's insane. The car is so reliable, so cheap, so fun. It genuinely is one of the best. But breaking its way into the top 10 for this list is the wonderful Audi A4 B8. We talked about the 328i F30. Let's talk about its rival now. The A4 B8 is, in my opinion, slightly more appealing than the 328i F30 we just talked about. And it's also slightly cheaper, so I would recommend this one over that one. Comes with a 2-liter turbo inline 4, just like the F30, but this one only makes 211 horsepower, which is 20 horsepower less than the F30. But this one's front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, whereas the F30 is rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. That doesn't really matter. Most likely you're going to get the all-wheel drive model anyway, so either way, this car has Quattro all-wheel drive, which is much better than X-Drive all-wheel drive from the BMW, so that's a plus. But on top of that, I don't know, I can't be the only one that thinks that Audis always typically have like better interior. Like, they have a better build quality, I would say, than BMWs. I love BMWs. I'm not saying BMWs are bad. The BMWs are my favorite brand in the entire world, but Audi's like interior quality and everything like that, it's just better. It's just going to be a better time for you to own an A4 than a 328i, I think. But coming in at 9th place is going to go back to another little bit of a Japanese sports car style vehicle. It's a 7th generation Toyota Celica GT. Now you may be thinking, oh my god, this guy's recommending this unreliable death trap to me. It's not actually that unreliable. It does have problems, specifically transmission problems. It has a lot of transmission issues, but it's a Toyota at heart, and it's got a Camry motor under the hood. That thing is freaking reliable, boy. It comes with a 1.8 liter inline 4 making 170 horsepower in its front wheel drive. There's nothing to write home about in terms of its performance. That's kind of the reason why people don't like the 7th gens, and that's the reason why they're so cheap. You could find one of these for like 3 grand or dirt cheap. The performance is just not really there, but everything else is, and it still looks like a cool sports car, you know? So if you want to fake it till you make it, here you go. 8th place, if you are a high schooler watching this, you're probably going to like send this clip to your friends, and you guys are going to all make fun of me at a freaking, at the next lunch table meeting that you have, because I'm recommending you buy a damn minivan. The Honda Odyssey 2nd generation truly is just a good freaking deal for a high schooler. for so many reasons. It comes with a 3.5 liter V6 making 240 horsepower and it's front wheel drive or all wheel drive. Obviously that doesn't matter because it's a minivan. Who cares if it makes 240 horsepower? Who cares if it makes 10 horsepower? Who cares if it makes 1,000 horsepower? It's a freaking minivan. The selling point on this thing is not the fact that you're going to look cool because it's a minivan. The selling point is the fact that it is so practical for a high school. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I would go to like a party and I would be driving my friends around in my PT Cruiser and I just wished I had more space because the girlies are like, oh, we want to go back, and it's like I don't have any freaking space because all my stupid idiot big dork friends are the ones taking up my seats. If I had a minivan, problem would have been solved. There's just so much benefits to owning a minivan, especially if you're a freaking high schooler, dude. But 7th place, back to the cool cars. We just had to take a brief intermission there for a second. 7th place is the Honda Civic 6th generation. I say cool cars, and most of you guys are probably like, this guy's telling me to buy a Civic and calling it cool. Yeah, Civics are cool. If you're not a car guy, you probably don't understand that right now. But if you are, we love them. We love our Civics over here, okay? Enough said. Car comes with a 1.6 liter inline 4 making 160 horsepower, but it's front wheel drive. Front wheel drive, again, is obviously something that most people want to stay away from a lot of the times. They like rear wheel drive cars, they like all wheel drive cars. Front wheel drive for a high schooler, however, for a daily driver or something that's like, it's probably the best option. I mean, all wheel drive is good, and it's probably better if you live in a snowy area, but front wheel drive is just so good on gas. These things are so light, man. So light. In a Civic 6th gen, if you want to build it up, you can, and especially on a high schooler's budget, dude, this is like one of the best options for you because Civic parts are so cheap. You can build this thing to be a rocket ship for dirt cheap and have a really cool car. It's just such a good idea. It's a Civic. There's a reason why people tell you to buy Civics when you're a high schooler. 6th place, though, let's talk about what I commonly refer to as the German Civic, the Volkswagen GTI Mark V. GTIs are by no means like a luxury car anymore, okay? They used to be back when it was like Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. Yeah, I would have called those luxury cars. Nowadays, I feel like they're just another sort of like sports car. They're not anything super crazy, but they're really good options. Once they start to depreciate, they're really good options to pick up for cheap. This one comes with a 2-liter turbo inline 4, making 200 horsepower in its front-wheel drive, and you can find Mark V GTIs under $5,000 all day long. And again, like I said before, they're a German Civic. They're reliable. They're good on gas. There's tons of aftermarket support for them out there. And since there's tons of them out there, all the parts are cheap and easy to install, replace, whatever it is you need to do. And since the car is light, any sort of horsepower gain you actually feel. Because like, let's say like you had a Camaro, right? Like it's a heavy car. If you get 10 horsepower from a cold air intake, you're not going to feel that 10 horsepower increase. If you get 10 horsepower in a GTI or a Civic, you're going to feel it because it's so damn light. But in case maybe you don't like to modify your cars and build them up as you're a high schooler because you just want to keep it as reliable as it can be stock. Well, number 5 is the Nissan 350Z, and that's a perfect car for you then because the motor in these cars is not the best for handling power. Let's just put that out there. These bad boys are making like 450. And then you just have to turbo it or else you are just stuck. It comes with a 3.5 liter V6 making 306 horsepower in its rear wheel drive. The 350Z market, I've been looking at trying to buy another one ever since I sold my first one. The 350Z market is insane nowadays, so I'm definitely not going to be the one to sit out there to be like, yeah, it's a good idea for a high schooler to go out and, as his first time ever buying a car, go get scammed buying a 350Z. But there is good deals out there still. There are still 350Zs that are worth buying. And once you do, it again, it's kind of like the Mark V GTI and the Civic before, they're good tuners, right? The 350Z kind of isn't. It doesn't really handle power that well, but it's already got enough from factory and it's already fun enough from factory that you might not even want that in as a high schooler. You kind of have to pick your poison there. 4th place is going to a unassuming little boy. Little boy. It's the Lexus IS300. The Lexus IS300 to a non-car guy is probably just a grandma sedan, and you probably could not care less about the Lexus IS300. It probably looks like the most boring car in the world. But to a car guy, we love these things, and there's a good reason for that. They come with a 3-liter inline 6, making 225 horsepower in its rear-wheel drive. Now, I want to be the first to tell you, unfortunately, you are not finding a manual IS300 under 10K anymore. It is just not possible, unless you get one with like 220,000 miles, but you don't want that. So you are going to have to settle with an automatic, but as a high schooler, that's fine. You have a sedan. It's a rear-wheel drive sedan with a 2J under the hood that has tons of aftermarket support. You can make it look insane. It's a nice start is all I'm saying. You know, it's not going to be... And another thing is, like, with Lexus, it's a Toyota, okay? And the Toyota motor under the hood is the 2JZ GE. It was put in the GS300, SC300, obviously the IS300, the Mark IV Supra without the turbo. That's a 2JZ GE. I think even the Mark III Supra had it. There was tons of cars that had the 2JZ GE under the hood, and for a good reason. it was reliable as hell. So even if you get like an IS300 with 150,000 miles, you're still going to have tons of more mileage out of it. But if we're going to talk about reliability, we have to talk about the freaking icon of reliability. Third place is the Jeep Cherokee XJ. These old Jeeps, whether it's a Cherokee and Wrangler, I'm not a Jeep fan, okay? I'm not. I just never really liked them. But they are, I cannot sit here and lie to people and tell them that they're not reliable. The old 4-liter inline-6 Jeep Cherokee XJs are, oh my Lanta, like one of the most reliable cars out there. Comes with obviously comes with the 4-liter inline-6 that makes 190 horsepower and it's 4x4. Again, this is not like something, you know, like most of these cars on the list are for like guys that like the tuners, you know, the cars that like low ride and, you know, stancy boys. This is obviously a completely different side of that. But if you're up north, where I'm from, Connecticut, so like if you're up here, a lot of people drive Jeeps, and for a good reason. These are reliable as hell, and they're going to be fun as hell off-road, and you can drive them year round without having to worry about anything. And they have tons of space. It's a Jeep Cherokee, bro. You could put freaking 10 idiots in the back seat of the cars. It's insane. But second place is admittedly just a personal preference here. I wanted to put it here because I like it so much. It's the Infiniti G37 Coupe. I really do think these are just an absolute bargain nowadays. They're pretty much, in case you don't know, a 370Z, which is obviously a very wanted sports car, but for significantly less money than a 370Z. They come with the same motor, a 3.7 liter V6 that makes 330 horsepower, and they're rear wheel drive or all wheel drive. You could also get the sedan. For anybody wondering, the sedan is even cheaper than the coupe, but I put the coupe here because I think it looks a little bit cooler. And overall, it could be all-wheel drive. I mean, like, that's good. The motor itself is reliable. It can make more power out of it if you want. Like, this is a big difference between the 350Zs and the 370Zs. The VQ37 and the VQ35 is that the VQ37 can actually make power, and the VQ35 really couldn't. And so you have tons of aftermarket support for them. The sky is your limit with a G37 Coupe, and you could just have so much fun with them. Don't turn into a takeover kid. If you do buy one, don't turn into a takeover kid, and we'll be all good. But first place, what I believe is one of the best options out there for a high school car guy right now is the Acura RSX Type S. This is what I mean by car guys, because if you are not a car guy and you want an Acura RSX and you don't care about the motor or anything like that, just buy a base model. They're cheaper. It makes no sense why you would spend your money on a Type S over the base model. But since you are a car guy, we're going to talk about the Type S. It comes with a 2-liter inline-4 making 201 horsepower, and it's front wheel drive. Obviously the motor is a K series, you can get a ton of power out of it, yada yada yada. You already know the deal with that. Civics, RSX, Integras, B series, K series, just good motors. They can make power. But the RSX Type S is also just a freaking little missile around corners. And I mean, I've never driven one. I want to make that clear. I've never driven one, but I have an Integra, a DC4 Integra, and those things are so forgiving, bro. You could be the newest driver ever, drive an RSX fast, and you are still going to get like good lap times because it's just that easy to do. It's so, you feel so connected in these old Hondas, and the RSX Type S is just, it's amazing. It really is. If you are a true car guy, chances are you're going to want to drive your car pretty fast. And I'm not going to be the guy to tell high schoolers to go out driving their car fast, but I'm also not going to be the guy to tell you not to do it. And so if you want to do that, an RSX Type S is probably going to be a really good option for you. Lightweight, forgiving as hell, tons of aftermarket support. Have fun, man. Just buy an RSX Type S and thank me later. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of the ranking 17, that's what it was, 17 of the best first cars for high school car guys. Again, I want to make that very clear. If you actually watched until this point, well, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. It means the world to me, man. It warms my heart. It warms my heart. We are so close to 100,000 subscribers, by the way, guys. We are at 96.7, I think it was. Thank you. Thank you to the moon and back. I couldn't thank you guys enough. I mean, obviously, I'm going to make a whole video thanking you guys and everything when we actually do reach 100K, but we are so close, man. It is mind-blowing. So, but yeah, anyway, I did want to make it clear at the beginning of this video that it is specifically a car guy list. These are not cars that I would recommend any high schooler to buy. Like, my sister's in high school right now. She's about to be 16, actually. I'm not going to go out there and be like, hey, Jennifer, go buy a RSX as your first car. That's a horrible idea for her because she doesn't like cars. Just buy a Camry, buy a Corolla if you're not into cars. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.